Hey everybody, welcome back to Tim Travels. It's Terry, your host, and B, my sidekick, is here. So we are at the Loves, right at the border of North Carolina and Virginia on I-77. And if you haven't driven the East Coast very much, you may not have been over Fancy Gap. And so right now, just to give you an idea, we're going to head north up to Fancy Gap. This is going to be north on Interstate 77. And it's a little bit of a climb. It's kind of well known, and the first time I ever drove it, I was driving south, which is really the more downhill side, because what happens is when we leave here, we're gonna climb up into the Appalachians from the Piedmont, or from the foothills here. And so coming down, headed south on 77, you climb up a little bit, but you're already pretty high, and then you come down. And I've kind of angled the camera off to the right a little bit, because even though it's a little bit overcast right now, you can see for miles and miles and miles, so it's pretty cool. So hopefully this will work out. If I don't have anything useful to say, I may end up just putting some music over this. I was toying around on GarageBand, trying to up my game. So see what happens here. But enjoy the ride. It'll be slow. I got about I think about 26,000 pounds in the trailer. I don't have a lot of fuel on board, but this is and really where we're starting out, it's already started to come up a little bit. And even as you head north out of Charlotte, on I-77, you're picking up altitude. But right just to the south of here, right around the border, because this is exit 1, so literally a mile down the road is where it really starts to ramp up. And just to kind of set this up, where we are, I-77 through in North Carolina is 105 miles. So if you head south, you go down through Charlotte, and then shortly after that, you would be in South Carolina, in right in Rock Hill, South Carolina. So like I said, 105 miles in North Carolina for I-77. So the cool thing is, I don't even have to merge, because right at that ramp is where we pick up this third lane for the trucks. And no, my hood's not loose. That's actually my camera mount. So we'll see how we do. I'm going to set my cruise. I'm actually going to set my cruise at 55. And even though that's not, super fast, it wouldn't surprise me if I catch other people going up here. And so I don't know off the top of my head what the altitude is at the Gap, but keep in mind that when you get to the Gap, even though it's the high point where the road is, it's still not the high point of the ridge or the mountains. And so you can see by the sign coming up, it's about 8 miles up to the top here. But the Appalachians, I used to be in the Navy with guys that were from out west, and they're like, oh, the where you live, they're, you know, and I grew up in New York State, but they're like, oh, the mountains aren't, you don't have mountains, they're just big hills. But here's an interesting tidbit. The Appalachians have they're actually worn down. And what I mean by that is that the Appalachians as a mountain range are much older than the Rockies. So over, you know, eons, or maybe not eons, but certainly millennia, the Appalachians have gotten rubbed down, for lack of a better term. And you know, they from, you know, different erodive, if that's the right word, for different forces of erosion, both wind and water. Because keep in mind, if you have a stream running down a mountain, every single day that stream is taking part of the mountain with it. So in places like this, where you have much higher rainfall than, say, places out in Colorado or Utah or New Mexico, you're going to have significantly more water erosion. And while the wind is not as prevalent here as it is, say, in certain places out west, it certainly is still a factor. So, you know, I used to remind people, yeah, well, if you were here like, you know, 50,000 years ago, you would have thought the Appalachians were much taller, because they actually were. But climbing this is kind of fun. It's a good, you know, it's a good place to learn. It's a good place to learn driving in the mountains, because a lot of this road is kind of like fenced in, if you will. And so there's it's not like some roads that I've been on where if you run off the shoulder, it's like a 300-foot drop. That's one thing. The other thing is it's 3 lanes, and it's also pretty well marked, as you can see. Because part of the reason the markings are so good is because it gets a lot of fog up here. So the markings are really good. But it's good, like, mountain training. You know, you get all sorts of weather up here that's kind of sketchy at times. So my truck is holding its own. We're in 10th gear, doing about a little under 50. I know the day cab guy with the empty flatbed doesn't think that's fast enough, but as you can imagine, this is a spectacular drive in the fall. North of here, not too far, I think it's maybe only about 20 miles, is where 77 intersects 81. And there'll be a space of about 8 to 10 miles where we kind of actually head southwest on, you know, where 81 and 77 run together, and then I'm going to turn basically back to the north, heading up towards West Virginia, the West Virginia Turnpike, as it were. And because this load that I have, I picked up outside of Charlotte, but it's going to I'm actually going to back off and let this red Classic guy go by me, just in case it's my old trainer from night, because last I talked to him, he was working at Red Classic. It's not him, but we're still hanging in there, going a little over 45, 47. But anyway, this load is going up to Ohio, to the Walmart distribution center up in Grove City, Walmart distribution center right outside of Columbus. That bridge right there, we're passing under the Blue Ridge Parkway. And that basically, if you know anything about that road, it runs the spine of the Appalachians, essentially. So that goes all the way up almost to like DC, I think. I think it goes from the DC area down into North Carolina. It's a great road to drive. You see a lot of campers and stuff out there. So we've gotten up. We're almost to the Fancy Gap exit, but we're over the top here, and we're just going to start coasting down. And just a word to the wise. So the speed limit here, this whole area in Virginia, including all the way back down, is variable. And normally, like today, it's going to be set at 65. But I have seldom come through here heading this direction, so heading north, basically heading down a little bit, where there hasn't been a Virginia State Trooper sitting kind of at the bottom of one of these hills. So it gets a little bit of a roller coaster effect coming up here. And so if you're ever running through here, and I don't care what time of the day it is, you shouldn't be surprised if you see troopers out here. I've never had any issues with any Virginia State Troopers, so I don't know how strict they are. But I'm guessing that, if you were a commercial vehicle and you're going much more than, like 72, you're probably going to get to meet one of them. And just as I'm saying all this, there's one up here discussing somebody's driving habits with them. So he was actually farther up than I expected. That's not a state trooper, that's a sheriff's deputy. Yeah. So I stand by what I said. It won't surprise me to see another couple of police cars out here, police vehicles. Anyway, I don't want to bore you with too much. We're now 10 miles inside of Virginia. Virginia, of course, is the Old Dominion. It's the capital is Richmond. Virginia is host to the second oldest continuous in use college. That's the College of William and Mary down in Williamsburg. My wife went to William and Mary for a little bit. She didn't end up getting her degree there, but when I was stationed down here, she did go to William and Mary. And I think Virginia still holds the record for being the home state of the most number of U.S. presidents, and I think that's at 8. I'm not sure I could name them all, but yeah, especially in the early days of the Republic, Virginia was a state that mattered a lot and produced a lot of presidents. Of course, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, James Monroe are all Virginians, so 4 of the first 5. Then President 6 was the son of President 2, so that was John Quincy Adams. President 7 was Andrew Jackson, and he hailed from Tennessee. President 8 was Martin Van Buren. He was a New Yorker. And then President 9, I believe, was William Henry Harrison, who was a Virginian, and he died in office and was succeeded by President Tyler, who was a Virginian. And then I'm a little fuzzy on like 11, 12, 13, and 14. But I'll do some studying. 15, of course, is Buchanan, one of the worst presidents ever. And 17 was Andrew Johnson. He was from Tennessee. By the way, Buchanan was from Pennsylvania. And so 2 of the worst presidents ever bookended arguably the best president ever, and that was Abraham Lincoln, the 16th president, who was an Illinois guy. So anyway, I digress. And I know Lincoln lived in Indiana for a time, and he was born in Kentucky, but he's a man from Illinois. But anyway, I digress. We're in the Old Dominion. And anyway, have a safe drive if you're driving today. Be safe, and we will catch you next time. Bye.